Shut up and sit down.
Oh, it is so tough to make these decisions. It's not you, it's me, and I'm letting you know right now. It's only because I feel, as the main person of this show, that I think I should take a couple of things with me when we do this. I think I should. Jackie's agreed to go with you and hang out a little bit. I want all the rants of Born Corbin. I think I should be taking the women's title to death. I think these are the things I need from you more than anything when we go our separate ways here, man. Because I know that when it comes to everything and how we love each other, I know that we can work things out, man. You know?
Man, what are you talking about, dude?
The brand split, man. I was chosen for one side, you were chosen on the other. We can't work together anymore.
No. We weren't chosen. We weren't taken. First of all, I registered us as a tag team. So, if they wanted to take us, they had to take both of us. 2, we were left out in the cold like Heath Slater. 3, yeah, we weren't drafted. I don't think they were given the good information on us though. But no, we haven't been drafted. We're not going anywhere. We're not SmackDown or Raw. It's exclusive. We can bust both of their chops.
Hey, you know what? We'll start our own brand. You know what we'll start?
What will we start?
This right here. Welcome back, folks, to Off the Ropes. I am the man, Kane, the super what Snooker, and I'm with my man from Nolans, the Faded Saint, and we're here to talk about the biggest situation that the WWE can throw at us, a huge curveball on what we call brand splits, and the pay-per-view that led behind that, and the two major kickers of the brand split generation of Raw and SmackDown going on leading afterwards. We have an action-packed show. First thing we want to announce before we go anything further here, folks, is this from now on will most likely be a Super PAC series because unfortunately, like all brand splits, there's going to be a fuck ton of pay-per-views. So we're going to have to deal with some of those mixed powers of doing both shows in one shot, talking about it, getting it all together. So expect a lot of those from here on out. But let's go and bring on the goodness that is the last few weeks in WWE history. Bring it on, Faded Saint. What do we got going on? What's the topic?
Well, we've got a shitload. This has been an action-packed month. I mean, we've got the draft, we have got the pay-per-view proper, and then we've got the first shows underneath the draft split. And we're going to get to all of that. We're going to start off, and we're not going to make this too long of a thing, but we're going to start off with the draft itself. Now, Monday Night Raw, Stephanie McMahon with her commissioner, Mick Foley, against SmackDown, Shane McMahon, and his commissioner, your boy D. Bri.
Okay, Daniel Bryan, it was leaked. We know that. Something accidentally came out on that. But who the fuck thought Mick Foley?
Hey, you know what? He was a very entertaining commissioner back in the day. I think this is a good utilization because you get the comedy properties. He gets a regular gig. More Foley is good Foley. And they may use this as a chance to expand his character out a little bit more.
Well, I know that he's got a show coming up on the WWE Network called Holy Foley. And if that's the case, I really hope we get to see more of Noelle. Hey, Noelle.
Hey, Noelle.
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute. Am I allowed to do that? Because she's like fourth of my age. You know what? Never mind. But they had a draft. Now...
Hey, she is hot. She is legal. It's on the ropes.
She is. Now... We've got. I've really only got 2 points here, but I also want to get our impressions first of all. My impression of the draft is just this: is that obviously Monday Night Raw won.
Hard, but like mountain versus molehill.
Like, it wasn't even funny. Like, and here's the biggest thing I think out of all of that. Of course, Monday Night Raw was going to win. They got an extra pick for every 2 picks that SmackDown got. Raw got 3. So when the draft happened, the draft was always Raw, SmackDown, Raw, every single round. So Raw was getting the first pick, the last pick, and because they were getting both of those picks between rounds, they were getting back-to-back picks, which is, so of course they were going to outbid SmackDown. Of course they were going to get all of the talent that SmackDown wanted because they had a fundamental advantage.
They also had the mid pick advantage too, because whatever they were going to pick as their first choice in SmackDown, Mick and Stephanie could easily curve out and say, well, since they chose that, we'll do mid, and then we'll choose that guy for the last line. Exactly. So they had huge advantages. If we went full kayfabe, that strategy would have been strong for any brand that gets to pick 3 out of 2.
Exactly. I mean, it wasn't really fair. Now, that being said, I've had a couple of weeks to think on it, and, well, it's kind of different, but before Raw on Monday and SmackDown on Tuesday, my line of thinking was you could pretty much look at Raw and you could already see what the top story was, and they had a bunch of mid-carders. With SmackDown, it's wide the fuck open, so you don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I could get into this. This is fine. We found out a little bit differently later on, but we'll get to that in all of its deliciousness. But I thought overall, obviously not helping the thought that SmackDown's the bitch show. I thought, Raw won. I do have, however, 2 particular sticking points as it pertains to just the draft in general, and these both happen to be SmackDown picks. The first is Baron fucking Corbin over everyone else. How the fuck do you pick Baron Corbin over American Alpha, who luckily they picked later, over Enzo and Cass, who they lost the very next pick? How do you pick freaking Baron Corbin instead of many of the other NXT talent who I have no idea why they were not picked? We're talking Austin Aries, Shinsuke Nakamura, The Revival, Bayley. I mean, I know why, outside of kayfabe, why they weren't picked, but why the fuck wouldn't you pick them? Why wouldn't you bring Japanese Brock Lesnar to your brand?
Well, you brought kayfabe to a writer's fight here, and this is pretty much a bit of difficulty here. And this is where I think me and Cigar are separate ways a little bit. I think SmackDown, even though in the sense of how everything went in the draft, I see the methodology behind why they pick SmackDown's choices. Think of it this way. You got Shane McMahon, who is considered the generational underdog. Mm-hmm. You got Daniel Bryan, who is considered the big league underdog. Both of them big underdogs against the monolith icons like Mick Foley, against the super giant that she's made in the last 10 years, Stephanie McMahon. What else be better than to choose wrestlers that have that same situation under their card, whether they're bad guys or good guys? Baron Corbin, even though he's a heel, he's that underdog heel. Nobody likes him. Everyone hates him. He's so boring. He's so annoying. La 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 la.
He's Randy Orton Jr.
He is. He's Randy Orton Jr. with Rhino's balls. I think that's pretty much, I can probably explain that as best as I could. But I think that's the big thing here now, folks, is that we got SmackDown, who's got this list of potential and destructive talent, which we'll see and discuss when we talk about it later in the show on the first SmackDown of the brand split. But they, I think they have the power to make a huge difference, because even their top choice is considered an underdog, and that's your world champion. He's been the underdog almost for everything. Roman Reigns has been the superficial underdog, even though we know he's not. Yeah. But because he's kind of gotten the same story. If you think about it, Roman and Dean kind of had the same story. They kept going for something, they kept getting for something, and they kept slipping away because of some bullshit, like the Authority for Roman or whatever wrestler for Dean Ambrose or whatever the writers want to do. So I think that's the main reason why they chose all these undercards. But then again, they also have some pretty sweet deals. I personally absolutely, with full love, think American Alpha is the greatest tag team this industry has.
Oh, yes.
And we've been saying for months, why the hell are they not in the main roster? We get a chance to see them this next Tuesday, so let's hope for it.
Yep.
But that's my thing. I think we shouldn't go any further on this, but I think that's the main reason.
There's one other thing. I can see where you're coming from. I agree for you for the most part. Please to be explaining, then, Mojo fucking Rawley.
I can't. Like, I don't even know why. I mean, I know why. I mean, we both know why.
We both know. So we could bring the Hype Bros up.
But
why not
put
them together as a tag team? Like, Eva Marie didn't count as NXT. You could have put Mojo Rawley off the back of Zack Ryder and then just brought them both over as a group.
True story, bro. True story.
I mean, SmackDown, by the way, ended up with 4 of the picks from NXT.
Well, I think that was like the trade-off because they got the best NXT pick going to Raw.
They got American Alpha, Alexa Bliss, Carmella,
Mojo Rawley.
and Mojo Rawley.
But Raw's got 2 very hyped out choices. I mean, come on, Finn Balor.
Yeah, they got Finn Balor and they got Nia Jax. So
come on, Nia Jax, and they're playing her so well. We'll discuss more of that later, folks.
Exactly.
We are 20 minutes into this shindig, and we didn't even go into the main base of what we want to talk about, which is Battleground.
And we need to get to that pay-per-view proper, and we need to get to it like nobody's business. But
this Super Show is going to eat us alive, man. It's going to eat us alive.
Well, what can we do, man? Like, the draft is an important part going in. We can't really talk about the pay-per-view proper unless we, address the draft.
True.
And, well, straight out the gate, we get the pre-cook show. And the pre-cook show was Breezango versus the Usos.
Can we just call them the Samoan Jobbers now?
Nobody cares, Krillin. Nobody cares. If you really do care, then Breezango over the Usos. But nobody cares, Krillin.
It is.
And
it was clean too.
It was totally clean. I missed most of the match because I was freaking I was cooking while the match was going on.
I mean, hell, look at Breezango had to do to lose against frickin' the Golden Druid. They had to get sunburned.
Yeah, that's still the stupidest thing ever. But
horrible.
At any rate, so that brought us to the pay-per-view proper, and we started off very surprisingly with one of the women's matches. It was Charlotte,
the orgasmic match, by the way.
Charlotte and Dana Brooks versus Sasha Banks and
the mystery wrestler.
It's Bayley. It was always Bayley. It was never going to be anyone but Bayley. No matter what they tried to pull over you. No matter what anyone said, it was always going to be Bayley. And
true.
Because it made no sense. Why would it not be Bayley? Because if it's not Bayley, then why doesn't anyone draft her?
And just want to make something very clear, folks. I know that all of our 6 big fans will ask this big question. No, she is not drafted. She was just a one-night deal. Just came in, one-night deal, just coming out to help out a girl, a friend in need, took care of business.
But she's coming.
She's coming.
She's coming. I mean, I expect her to drop another win, to drop a loss to say her name because I always mispronounce it.
Saka?
Yep. Asuka.
Wow, I even failed that. Fail class. We both need to go back to the WWE Performance Center.
But at any rate, I expect her to drop a loss to Asuka and then get drafted to, my guess would be SmackDown?
Well, we'll know for a fact at Brooklyn if they say thank you Bayley at the end of her match.
Right.
So.
Exactly. So, at any rate, this was a pretty good match. This was actually a damn good opening match. It was...
Damn right.
Bayley, when her music hit, the crowd went berserk.
And let's just let you know right now, to set the tone for everyone, folks, this entire pay-per-view was goddamn fantastic. I feel like I need to give everybody a little lubricant in this because I know me and Faded Saint have a history of tearing and destroying our pay-per-view and doing these things. I just feel like you got to give some hope. And this Battleground was fantastic.
It was
fantastic.
I'll give my summation at the end, but there were some dark spots. But goddamn, this match wasn't one of them. It was a great match. It was a brawl all the way through. Everyone, even Dina, was serviceable in the match. We'll go with serviceable. That's a nice one.
She's no longer known as Dana to me. She will now forever be known as Empress Zendel from Mortal Kombat.
Oh god, that was just
her outfit. Don't tell me it's not.
No, I'm not. But for those of you who are
plus her initials are easy, and that's even funnier.
Yeah, true. For those of you keeping track of the home game, Sasha hit the backstabber and into the bank statement, and won the match for her and Bailey. As they put it later on, the Boss and Hug connection over the Charlotte and Mini Charlotte.
Yeah. Either way, it was still a great match.
It was still a great match.
Passion was there, anger was there. Definitely leads into what happens later on the next day.
Yep.
So let's definitely talk about a great other match that happened, and that is the true ending of a really good faction, a stable known as the Wyatt family. I think that when it comes to how everything goes with that, the Wyatts did a versus the New Day for the last time. They came as a team because we all know Braun went to Raw. Bray and Eric went to SmackDown. We're not sure if there's a Wyatt family situation happening on SmackDown.
But doesn't look like it. Rowan has got his own little vignettes and stuff that are going on. They haven't acknowledged that they're going to be together, but who knows? The Wyatt family was, in my opinion, was always a faction that never got their just due. Now, I do need to correct myself, because I don't know if it was you or the people I was watching with, but somehow we got on the subject of the Wyatts during this match, and I pointed out that the Wyatts never had any major title. I need to amend that, even though it's kind of an asterisk there. Luke Harper was the Intercontinental Champion. He was not with the Wyatt faction when it happened. This was during the first breakup. But Luke Harper, as of right now, is the only Wyatt who has had a title. Any title.
Yeah, you're right.
But Bray has not had a title of any kind. Rowan and Strowman have not had a title of any kind. And I was happy to see that they got put over the New Day. And the New Day was fantastic. And Xavier Woods really needs to be utilized more. He's really good at what he does.
My God, that last 5 minutes of that match was just poetic.
Exactly. But I was very happy to see the Wyatts go over at the end.
Folks, if I want to give you a brief description, what happened was that during the entire time that the Wyatts and the New Day were feuding, there was this very dark and awning over Xavier Woods. He was scared of them. He even explained how serious they need to be when it comes to even going to the compound. And there was just some weird demonic trance that happened with Xavier Woods and Bray Wyatt, where we almost had a fifth Wyatt family member, and that was Xavier Woods. I mean, at one point during the match, Bray did his kayfabe smiley face thing to Xavier Woods, and he was about to kneel and portray his two besties, and that got easily interrupted by Big E. Which, by the way, Big E, please, for the love of God, stop diving in through the middle rope onto people without some sort of safety precautions, because my God, man, that drop you did in the middle of that looked like you almost literally put your head into your chest. Please, for the love of God, stop that mid-rope run. I know you're a big dude. Those shoulders can take a lot, but holy crap, I feel like you're going to die eventually from that move.
He landed on his foot. It was much like, and I believe we might have said the same thing in one of the women's matches.
Yeah.
No, it was the women's match on next night on Raw. But he reminded me of Lita when she would do that move. Because although Lita was a great high flyer, whenever she went flying, especially doing that suicide dive thing, she always looked like a boat anchor. It was just like, nyum.
Yep, not much height, more drop. But yeah, I get what you mean, man. That was some scary scenes. But I gotta say, Xavier Woods came out of nowhere, took some business, took on all the Wyatts, even Braun at that moment. Even though they lost, it was a great and a really good way to make all of them strong for their individual roles they're gonna have going forward. Because that was the missing link for the first time they did the split. Because they did this before, folks. They split up the Wyatt family, and they just looked weak on their own altogether.
They did.
This one looks like they possibly made them stronger doing this.
Well, once again, Wyatt's over New Day. No titles were on the line, so nothing mattered.
You notice that they always lose when the titles are on the line?
Yeah, I noticed that.
WrestleMania?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah. But
Going on with that
brings us into the next match, and You know what time it is, folks. It wasn't the women's match this time. It's time.
Hey, I don't know about you. I don't even know why you need that beer, because to me, that's progress. When you have to consider this the piss break, that's progress.
I mean, of course we're talking about Russell versus Zack Ryder for the U.S. title. Here's the problem with this match. And the later on match. They kind of telegraph everything that's going to happen in all the title matches from here on out by what happens in this match.
True.
If Russell loses, then what has to happen is that Miz has to lose as well, so that the title switch brands. Or if they're going to put the title on more likely than not, they were going to do the title switch. They weren't going to put both titles on the same one, especially not on Raw, which has all of the titles.
All the titles.
All of the titles except for the world.
Insert Gary Oldman.
Everyone. But also, this also affects the World Championship, because obviously, if they end up with no titles, or unless SmackDown ended up with both titles, which means Ryder would have had to have won and Miz would have had to have retained, then you kind of get, well, maybe that World Championship is going over to Raw. Logically. However, this is Russell, and this is Zack Ryder. Do I need to remind everyone that Zack Ryder is Dolph Ziggler Sr.?
And also Zack Ryder. And there's also a rule with Ruru.
Yep.
The more American you are, the more you're going to lose.
So, of course, he walks out with the fucking red, white, and blue trunks. It's like, well, this isn't going to go badly.
Oh, God.
It was a decent little match. Zack had his little hope spots. Good for you, Zack. You're good on you. In the end, the accolade forced Zack to tap out. And then...
Now, is that the new accolade, by the way? Is that his thing where he looks like he's going to put his dick through the back spine?
Yeah, they're trying to get it off of a camel clutch and onto something more, and I guess it looks more hurting. It
looks more like Dick is going to go into the back of the spine.
Well, here's the thing. It looked so good when Kalisto sold it, but Kalisto looked like he was being bent in half.
True.
I don't know what else, but he keeps the accolade. He puts the accolade back on, and he keeps doing it, and Zack keeps tapping, and it's already the end of the match, and then Mojo comes out, and I swear to God, I know they didn't intend for it to be this way, but Rusev just kind of went. Yeah, whatever.
I was watching it with people, and they all started dying of laughter because it just looked like a rabid dog that's still on a chain. Just like literally ran to the prairie and he's like, fuck this guy, and like walked away.
It's like, whatever. Ruru could not be bothered with Mojo Rawley, and that's the end of Zack's singles push.
Yeah, let's just move on to the match of the year, match of the century, match of the decade, match of the love, the passion of the match, whatever the hell you want to call this, because this goddamn moments. I personally, I'm gonna kind of spoil it right now in a way. Did that ending not make you feel like that scene with Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels before he does that big super kick at the end by saying, "I'm sorry, I love you"? I feel like that was just right there. That moment,
little bit
without the talking too, which is the best part because Sami Zayn didn't talk at all in that one. He just had that face of like, I'm going to fucking end this right the fuck now.
Yeah.
All in that part. But from the beginning of the match.
This match was match of the year. And then he took Sami Zayn. Of course, we're talking about Sami Zayn versus KO. And you'll notice on Raw, they were very careful not to book the two together.
True.
They were very careful. This is pretty much the end of it for right now between them. And this is it. This is over. But dear God, they had a good 30, 40 minutes to work. And Sami, like early on, took that really weird bump. It had to have been a botch on his shoulder, but I thought he was legitimately hurt.
He fucking sold it.
But he sold it like his soul was about to get given to the devil.
This is how I know good chemistry was good chemistry from the beginning, and that is KO noticed that, and they both decided, I don't know how they verbally agreed with it. I don't know if it was just they just knew what to do with each other, but he obviously took advantage of that sell
Right.
too, because they
And
took down that shoulder hard.
that freaking apron brainbuster that he gave KO, and just the false finishes, and they weren't like false finishes in the sense of like, oh, they've only like, you really thought that this was the end. They had you here, they had you there, and it all came down to the haluva kick, and then that one, and then that perfect KO falling forward and Sammy catching him, and just that look was like, we were friends once. And like you're like, wait, Sammy, what are you doing? What's happening here? And then
he was unconscious.
He just pushes him back, and goes back, hits the second haluva kick, and it was just.
But
watch it. I've watched it 4 times. I've watched that match 4 times since.
It's fantastic, but it's not. I feel like the passion's being misled here because that face he had, my God. It looked like it was like, it's gonna be over. It's gonna be
It's
over
done.
right the fuck here. I'm done with this shit. Stop trolling me. We're done.
Yeah, it was. Sami Zayn beats Kevin Owens, and
that haluva kick looked like he added cement to his shoes just for that one
did.
last one. Because he literally, like, if we had to like just transcribe the kick, it looked like his kick was going to end in the back of his skull.
Yeah, it did, and Kevin sold it. He sold it like, and that
sold
was
it better than that fucking ladder banana spin he made.
Damn.
Money in the Bank, man. Oof.
God, man, yeah.
God bless that fantastic match.
Real fast, and then we'll get to the next match. Better or worse than Zayn and Nakamura?
It's its own beast, dude.
I think it was better. I think this is my new match of the year right now.
I think this one. Okay, this is why I say it's its own beast. Mm-hmm. This one was to end a very good and very proactive feud.
Fair enough.
The one for Nakamura was to prelude the great technical prowess of both men and to end a great run for someone else to move on. That's why I consider them two different beasts. They both are very technical. The only difference here is one is passing a torch and the other is ending a very passionate feud. That's how I felt. That's why I think there are two different beasts in this conversation. It's kind of like comparing Undertaker at WrestleMania 30 with Brock Lesnar versus Undertaker at Hell in a Cell for the last time. Two different beasts.
I can understand that, but I still think when it comes time to say match of the year, which one is which?
Well, if you got to put a gun to my head, I would say Owens.
Yeah, that's it. That's where I'm at. They're both very good matches for very different reasons.
My eyes were very watery when he grabbed him when he was about to fall.
Yeah.
Because you knew that was like, I'm not done with this. This has to be... You have to believe, Kevin, that this has to end. You have to think tomorrow.
I thought he was going to let... He was going to let Kevin... He was going to just take the fall just to try and save their friendship for a second.
No. I feel like Sami Zayn had to say in many... That face pretty much expressed the most basic line I can say here, and that is, you will not come after me tomorrow. This is... You will know this is do not fucketh anymore after this particular situation. Because he could have probably pinned him right then and there with that haluva kick alone. He made sure that the knowledge of Kevin Owens did not just start with one, but two very strong, in your fucking face haluva kicks. It makes it hard. It makes it hard for this match made Battleground over before we had the main event, and that was the scary part. We thought, how the hell is the main event going to make this any better?
Exactly. I mean, and hell, I'll say this much, man. After this match, it would have taken a hell of a thing for me for this pay-per-view to be ruined. And we almost got that. Almost, but not the next match. The next match was Mrs. Dolph Ziggler, Dame Dolph Ziggler, versus my girl, Mrs. Faded Saint, aka Natty Neidhart. It was a match. I mean, it wasn't a bad match. I mean, it looked good, but I mean, what was the one thing that I said in our little chat room when the match started, when we were talking about who was going to win and who was going to lose? You remember?
Doesn't matter.
It does, because I sat there and I asked, it's like, Becky's got to win.
Yeah,
eventually.
But you saw my response though, right?
Yep. And your response was, and this was like during the entrances. We're like not even to the match proper when this conversation is happening. You said it's like, yep, not tonight, and I'm like, no, not tonight. God no. I mean, who do they think she is? Sasha and Charlotte?
Well, we do have to acknowledge another big win for the women's division. 2 actual matches in one pay-per-view.
Yeah. Hey.
That's a big, huge.
2 decent-sized matches.
Yeah, the match wasn't bad, and it took longer than normal, you're right. But it was definitely dry because of the fact that Becky and Natty hating each other doesn't make sense. There's nothing strong about it. So it wasn't as passionate as you would say the first 4 ladies that happened at the beginning of the pay-per-view. No. But it's definitely one of those where it's got to end sometime.
Right.
End it now. End it the new SmackDown. I have no idea. Stop it.
We'll get to that. But I mean, it was Natty over Becky. Pretty paint by numbers, and then came.
I mean, you gotta feel bad for them though. Before we get anything, you have to feel bad for them coming out after a match like that.
I mean, what were you gonna do? Like that was.
They had to scuttle the next 2 matches just to make sure that people were calm and Lucius for.
Yeah, for the next match. This is the worst kind of scuttle. This is the one that almost ruined it for me, and that was your Intercontinental Champion, The Miz, with Mr. The Miz or Mrs. The Miz. I don't care, Maurice.
You know
whatever.
What? Can we replace the word Intercontinental with Itza? So that because there's no point. It's now to me a title. It's a title.
So it's a title. Miz with the It's a title versus making Darren Young great again with Bob Backlund. And
tell me you don't agree with me though that this is not the Intercontinental we know.
It had been previous to this feud because the ladder match at WrestleMania, the match, the Four Corners match with Cesaro and Owens and Zayn and The Miz, which we thought was going to be shit, but was awesome. Uh-huh. Yes, I can see where you're coming from, and it kind of feels like in the draft it's getting lost in the shuffle because it's being equated to the U.S. belt, which has been crap since they took it off of John Cena. Uh-huh. But we've had good matches in recent memory with the IC belt. This wasn't one of them. I don't even think
last time I thought a real good champion was on it was Kevin Owens.
I'll agree with you. Miz has done what he can, but they're throwing him, they're not throwing him Cesaro anymore. They're not throwing him Zayn and Owens anymore.
You're right. He had good matches with the IC title involved.
Like we weren't even mad when he retained against those 3.
And I don't want to be particular right now when it comes to the next. I feel like the fall of this title, but I think it really got shot down hard when they made Tyson O'Neil that particular. Wait, I'm sorry, not Tyson O'Neil.
Tyson O'Neil. He went for the U.S. title. You're thinking of Ruru.
Wrong one. Yeah, Jackie, come on now. You know I want to. All right. Yeah, she corrected me. Okay. The last person,
Darren Young.
Not Darren Young, the one before that.
There was nobody before that because the Intercontinental, and this is probably what you're thinking of, because the Intercontinental Championship took a fucking month off for reasons.
You're right.
For no fucking reason. It was just like, by the way, The Miz is off shooting a movie. And they just would do these quick Skype vignettes where he's just like, oh, I'm the Intercontinental Champion and I'm doing a movie and blah 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 blah. And that's the problem. If this was an angle where he was just doing this just for the sake of doing it, then take the belt off of him and because it's stupid and it didn't add anything. If it wasn't an angle and he actually had a movie, then you should have taken the belt off of him back when you had him up against fucking Cesaro and fucking what's his name and who's it's like Cesaro, Owens, and Zayn, and put it on one of them, because that freaking Zayn Kevin Owens match, that was worthy of having a title on the line. That was worthy of being a blow-off for one of the two of them, Zayn, to have a long Intercontinental Championship run. This, I don't even think this match had an ending. Like, I've looked everywhere, even WWE.com. They cannot tell me what happened at the end of this match. Like, apparently Maurice fell over, Bob Backlund tore his shirt off, Miz, like, started pointing and yelling at people, pushed Bob Backlund somewhere. Bob lost a tooth, and then Darren put him in the crossface chicken wing, and bells started ringing, and nobody happened, and then...
And and the weird part was Bob Backlund decided to, like, go weird. Like, he was in the middle of, like, getting dressed and looking undressed.
So, I guess what we're saying is, we don't know how this match ends. We just know that it ended, and it didn't end fast enough for my liking.
It did not.
Which brought us in to Big match John Cena versus... Oh, I'm sorry. Big match John Cena with Enzo and Cass versus AJ Styles and the Club. And I'm a little miffed. Basically, the story of this match is that the tag teams... Okay.
Before you get teaved, because I know that you had a little thing between this, and I want to address this because I know you had a little bit... I know you felt it was dragged on, but you tell me that you didn't like the Enzo intro.
The Enzo intro I like in general, and I can see its merits on a 3-hour Raw. I can't see its merits when you're already running over on a pay-per-view. And I'll be honest, it's starting to grade a little bit. A little bit. Like, it's still entertaining, but it's like, oh, there goes the next 20 minutes of my life. Like, they need to moderate it a little bit. Like, Enzo is a quick-witted dude. He's a smart dude, too. He reads, like, a ton of books. Like, this is a dude that goes through vocabulary books and thesauruses in his spare time. Like, I'm not saying that he's not a smart dude, but he needs to, like, this little thing right here needs to be pulled back just a little bit, just reined in, like, special. Like, Finn Balor doesn't pull out the demon every time he comes out. You know, you wanna save your A material for the close-up, as they say. And here's the basic story of the match. Cena and AJ are going to SmackDown. The Club and Enzo and Cass are going to Raw. This was basically AJ Styles versus John Cena with a bunch of side players who happened to be there. And first of all, I would like to, because I said I was going to address this, I would like to address a couple of things as pertains to Enzo. First of all, Enzo, if you are certified anything, let alone a certified G, there is a test for that. You have to be certified. So, in effect, you can teach that. If you are bona fide in anything, that means that there is some kind of an inspection you have to test, which means there are regulations, which means, in fact, you can teach that. And as pertains to Big Cass, I know how to walk on stilts, and that makes me 7 feet tall. I can certainly teach that. So, realist guys in the room, I think not. Secondly, we really didn't need Enzo and Cass or the Club here. This was really, and I said this, I don't know if I said this to you guys, but I said this with the people I was watching. I said, if John Cena, I guarantee you, John Cena gets the win over AJ Styles. I'll guarantee you, it's John Cena, AA, pins AJ Styles, gets his win back. And sure enough, that's what happened. This was basically just them with extra players for set dressing. And I feel bad, but thankfully it looks like they've got the Club on the mend.
Well, I think there was also another passing of the torch tonight with that, and that was Enzo with the Thugonomics degree thing.
Yeah, that was
John Cena. Mm-hmm. I think that was pretty good, because, everyone was over with John Cena, but everyone's super over now with Enzo. I
do appreciate that throughout and earlier on at SmackDown and at Raw the night before, that John Cena played the out-of-touch old man to Enzo and Cass's hip and with the times lingo. And John's like, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what's going on. What's going on?
But I like it, Michael.
I like it, Michael. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Cena got his win back against AJ Styles. Who's here surprised? Am I surprised? I'm not surprised. Are you surprised?
No.
Who? Which brings us into the highlight reel with Y2J, featuring Baron Corbin Sr.
Can we just say it happened? Can we just say it happened?
Here's what you need to know.
Can we just say it happened?
Laurel's favorite talk show host got the RKO, and they wasted 20 minutes doing it. That's all they got to do. That's all they got. You want a beer, man?
L2J.
Hey, look, L'Oreal, you've only got to put up with this until the end of the year. Then Y2J is going back to Fozzy, and he's touring all through 2017.
What? No more?
Yep. No more. We'll have to find somebody else to pin on her. At any rate, that was a thing that happened. Baron Corbin Sr. got the RKO on Y2J. Yep. Wasted 20 minutes of our lives. It was pretty bad. The only thing worth mentioning is that little dig he got at Brock Lesnar. RKO out of nowhere, no enhancement needed. Randy, you gonna die.
That was the rib.
Randy, you gonna die.
But that was the rib. That also was the pot calling the kettle black. How in God's green earth can you?
I'm sorry, how many?
Who technically should be fired right now.
Yeah. Yep. He should be.
For said enhancement questions.
But with that said, that brought us into the main event, and that was the Lunatic Fringe, Dean Ambrose, champion, versus the Architect, Seth Rollins, versus fully bearded the guy, Roman
Master Beard
Reigns. And dear God, did you just feel the waves of heat?
There was so much
the moment his music played.
The nuclear heat that came out of that place could have generated the entire United States from keeping warm during the winter. That's how much heat was bursting out of that whole arena.
I have not seen heat like that since X-Pac, who the crowd hated for no good reason. Like, they just hated him. They just decided they were going to hate him. No matter what he did, they always hated him. And they cheered Seth. They really cheered Dean. And this was a good match. This was the match I always expected. And I got into a bit of a... Because they've been building up this match as the Shield is the best of the new generation. And my best friend, Best, he asked me, it's like, do you agree with that? It's like, well, if you look at it, yeah, they kind of are. I mean, obviously you can make an argument for Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and Cesaro and all of them, but these three came up together and they were dominant. Let us remember that they got Evolution back together to job to these three guys twice. These guys did not disappoint. This was the match I always expected that these three would eventually have. And it was good. Kept me guessing because I wasn't sure what they were going to do. I was pretty sure that they were going to keep it on. They were going to keep it on Dean because otherwise that was going to leave SmackDown with one single title, the Intercontinental title. And but they still kept me. They didn't know, and there was that little voice in the back of my head that said Vince really likes Roman Reigns. He might let him get it over, even though, like, realistically, that isn't a thing. But wouldn't you know it? Guess who ended up doing the job? That's right. Roman Reigns gets pinned after a dirty deeds by Dean Ambrose to retain the WWE World Heavyweight Championship and secure it for SmackDown. And the SmackDown locker room came out and they hoisted him up. Did you find it funny that the Usos, the Roman Reigns' cousins, were hoisting up Dean Ambrose? Sorry, Roman, you suck. We're with Dean now.
Roman Reigns' piss literally destroyed him.
He has pissed away his 2-year-long push, and it is.
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
bad for him because he seems like he's a cool
dishonor
dude.
my family, dishonor my cow, kind of.
But
crap.
it is so hilarious to watch. And if you thought Roman Reigns' night couldn't get any or if you thought Roman Reigns' week comeback couldn't get any worse, you're just going to have to stay tuned for the second half because it gets a whole lot worse the next night on Raw.
Yeah,
But-
and I'll have to say this, though. When it comes to Roman Reigns, you could tell how bad Vince is pissed. Because the first time he found out about the problem, Money in the Bank, he lost clean to Rollins.
He
Then
lost.
lost clean to Raw the day after. Then he comes back for Battleground, and his shoulders are pinned once again, clean.
Dean.
Then his own cousins get used for the lift. Then he gets more before that, going a little bit back.
Mhm.
His own cousins again. This time, Nia Jax gets more push and understanding on Raw than him. So someone make a tombstone that says Roman Reigns. Now, instead of saying I'm not the good guy, I'm not the bad guy, I was a guy.
Now you're just somebody that I used to know, somebody, and that's how we ended Battleground. All right, well, what do you say? What do you think? Letter grade for Battleground, and why?
A, straight out A plus. Actually, I'm gonna go A plus because even with the two scuttle matches, I felt like it was needed so that way the fluidity and the hype didn't explode everywhere. Because I don't want someone gasping for air in the process. I think it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All the matches matched up. All of them understood each other. And they picked them in the right spots to make it flow. Good match beginning. Okay match. Good matches. Fantastic nuclear love match. Scuttle. Good match. Enjoyable. Great ending. All the way through. And it gave, you know what I love a pay-per-view? I love when a pay-per-view can bring out the entire crowd and say, enjoy us, we did it. Like Sting when he won the WCW title back from NWO, or Benoit when he won the title at WrestleMania 20. Even though
He who shall not be named. You know that better than that. We're gonna get in trouble. But yeah, I actually 100% agree with you. A plus. How often does that happen?
I don't know. Very rare, but we know what you and I looked at pretty much eye to eye and said.
Pretty much. The only thing I would change is I would change the order of the Intercontinental Championship match in Becky Lynch and Natty. Maybe because
I think would have been sweeter if Bob Backlund was caught hitting the Miz and then having a little bit of that saying why that's my fault. I know I trained you better. That way they can make Darren stronger.
But I mean, I would venture to say, and I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but I would venture to say that Battleground is the best main roster WWE pay-per-view we have seen so far.
Of this year.
Yes, of this year.
Yeah, let's not pull everything all together.
Money in the Bank is a close second. How sad is this, guys? Like, WrestleMania isn't even the top two. Would you agree with me there?
And ask me that question again, because I need to have that addressed.
WrestleMania is not in the top two of the best pay-per-views this year.
I don't know, man. WrestleMania 32 was good.
It was good, but it was not better than Money in the Bank, and it was not better than Battleground. My opinion.
You know what I'll say?
What?
I'll give you this. Kudos on a consecutive pay-per-view smash.
No kidding. Kudos. And no NXT in between the two pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Speaking of NXT, I'm going to be going to seeing them next weekend.
Really?
Yep, they're going to be in town.
They're coming to Nolans?
They're coming to New Orleans. I'm going with my best friend Vest and his wife Mims. And with that said, we are going to go ahead and we're going to go to break. When we get back from break, we are going to address the first new Raw since the brand split, and the first new SmackDown since the brand split. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we know is coming up at SummerSlam. So we will see you after the break.
See you in the middle, folks.
On behalf of Kane, Super What, Snuka, and myself, we would like to thank bensound.com for our opening theme, Actionable. We would like to thank Meatshed for our closing theme, Picnic at the Reactor. And today, we have in honor of the new era being ushered in. Our matchup today is Catching the Shattered Glass, Finn Balor versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Enjoy. Welcome back. I'm your boy, Kami the Faded Saint. That is my boy, Kane Super What? Snuka. And Off the Ropes is brought to you this week by Bootios. An actual thing that you can get through FYE's website now. It is a real, legit, 100% cereal. Yes, it's expensive. It's like $13 a box. I won't be getting it, but you should get it. Because Bootios, make sure you ain't booty. And talking about things that aren't booty, we had the brand split, which we talked about in the first hour. Baron Corbin was a part of this brand split, unfortunately, but we won't get into that just yet. We will get into Raw. Right after the pay-per-view, the new 3-hour Raw with Stephanie McMahon and Mick Foley. And first of all, new intro.
Really good new intro.
Really good new intro. Second of all, new set.
Very fabulous.
Very fabulous. Third of all, the announcers moved to behind the crowd.
Classic JR and King 2002.
Yep, and whenever they would do that shot where you look at the announcers, they were always standing up behind their seats.
That I loved.
I did as well.
That's a homage to WCW.
It's not just a homage to WCW; it's also a homage to the old Superstars and Wrestling Challenge shows,
Yeah.
where they would do those little vignettes.
Which I wanted to desperately ask you, and I figured I'd do it on the podcast.
Okay.
How WCW eerie was Raw? With the whole reaction announcers coming out after matches and shit. Like, how eerie?
I dug it. It was something different. And one other thing that we need to address that was different on Raw
Good graphics?
One major thing. Well, there were graphics, and the graphics are cool. Was that they changed the announce team. The announce team was Mega Cole, Byron Sexton, if you were to believe the pay-per-view before, who misspelled his name during the pre-show cook.
Someone hated Byron that day.
And Corey Graves.
Oh, God, this.
Yes. Oh, my God.
Yes, the day has sown. The man that actually cares.
You know what? I'm going to do this now. Mostly because this is getting warm, and I don't want it to get too much more warm before I drink it. I always have, like I don't have, like, ice or anything. Like, all of my beers, when I'm over here, just over here to the side, and they get warm over the podcast. But, yep. Here's to you, Corey. This is not a bad beer. This is a celebratory beer. I am so happy you were here, and you did not disappoint.
You did have a couple of moments, but that's just every announcer. They always have that moment.
Right.
Let's be fair. Also, it is mostly because Vince is in their ear saying, you have to say this or I'll kill you.
Yes.
So...
But, I mean...
In return, though, I also feel like Michael Cole has some picture, like Shane did, for Vince to say, you will keep me in my job role, or I will reveal this picture to people, because, by God, Maggle, why do you even bother? You don't even announce, you just talk. You don't even talk about, like, Morrow is destroying you right now. I'm done ranting. We're good.
Well, I'm going to say this. I know that they want Byron Saxton to be the next Michael Cole. I know they want him to be the guy who eventually takes over when Michael Cole leaves, eventually. He's getting up there in age, believe it or not. Like, Michael Cole's been with the company for, like, almost 20 years, man. But, he's going to have his... And, you know, some people said, it's like, oh, this is good for Byron because JBL, you know, is always ragging on him so hard and stuff, and JBL is primarily the reason why they had a part of the announcer's rules be don't emasculate your announcer partners. But Corey Graves has very quietly really kind of cultivated this hipster douche persona, but that he really knows his wrestling. So he's really informed, but he's the kind of guy that you want to punch in the center of his fucking face. I mean, am I wrong? Like, that's what I get from him.
He's got his own attitude, I'll give you that. Like, when he does NXT, which is one of the things you and I loved about watching NXT when it came to him and Tom, is that they just have this great chemistry that allows you to go, okay...
If they wanted to get rid of Maggle and Byron and bring Tom on board, I'm for that.
Yeah.
Because Tom fights back.
Tom does. Tom snips back at... He is the equivalent of what I would consider JR and Paul Heyman of this generation. Like,
Yes.
I feel like Corey Graves is Paul Heyman, and I feel like Tom Phillips is JR when it comes to, like, something gets announced, and he'll throw a curveball at Tom, and Tom's like, really? You're going to say that? And not, like, let me correct you right there? Like, you know, it's like...
They are so good together.
And you know what? You kind of feel that way even with Byron with JBL in a way, because you know they used to go toe for toe on that kind of stuff. But they were just they weren't good. They weren't talking about wrestling. They just quipped each other.
Right.
But I feel like that was the way with Byron and Corey in a way.
They're building a rapport. And
but
if
Maggle's just in his own fucking bubble. I swear to God.
Maggle.
He's literally in the middle going, hi, I'm Maggle Cole. I get to see.
Can you believe we've been going on for 5 minutes about how good Corey Graves and how much of an upgrade he is?
Michael Cole and fucking Maggle.
But aside from the changes, which are well, like Raw felt new, Raw felt fresh. It felt like I was watching a new show.
Yes, it felt fantastic, even though
there were 8 total matches that we had on Raw. 4 of them were squash matches. 4 of them were like really real matches. We're going to talk about these 4 squash matches real fast, just so that we can get them out of the way.
Before we do, one thing we both agree on is why in God's green earth is Universal Studios making a title belt.
I was hoping you weren't going to mention this.
I had to.
I'm trying to keep us to a certain amount of time here, and now you've mentioned that, and so now I've got to go on this rant. Everyone sit down. Everyone go get a soda. Go ahead and pause the podcast at this point. if you're listening right now, pause the podcast. You're probably gonna want to go get a drink. You're probably gonna want to go get like a nice tea or something, like maybe a nice Coke, maybe with a little straw or something. So
Quiet.
because Roman Reigns, and they were explicit, Roman Reigns messed it up for Raw and got pinned by Dean Ambrose because Roman is a loser and Roman sucks, and they were really drilling that home. That Roman is why this happened. Roman sucks. Roman's the one that got pinned.
They need to make him a fucking heel now.
They do. They said, okay, well, we're making our own top-tier title belt. To the surprise of no one. We all knew it was going to happen. But what is the name of that belt? The WWE Universal title. Oh. That is like the wrestling title you come up with when you're like 12 years old and you're with your friends and like you're making your own cardboard title belts and you come up with the Universal belt. I know that they explained it because it was inspired by the WWE Universe, but really, is that the naming scheme we're going with? The Universal belt.
I think they did it because then they can say, "I will fight you on the moon." They can actually say it now.
Maybe they did, and maybe they will. Maybe they will fight on the moon. Who knows? But that is a god awful name for a belt. Like I have said repeatedly this week, and I will repeat here on the podcast, because we're going with this naming.
Can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes.
I ranted so hard. I ranted so hard my mic cut out. That's how much that this upsets me. The freaking Universal belt. Like, are we gonna call the SmackDown title the freaking Best Buds Forever title?
Besties with testes.
Something like that. Jesus Christ. Fucking Universal belt. Now I'm pissed. Anyway.
Did Kevin Dunn just take over your mic?
Maybe. Is Kevin Dunn in my computer?
He could be. He is trying to universally take over the internet so he can stop everybody from talking about people like Roman Reigns and stuff.
Well, why? Because they certainly don't care about calling him a loser.
It's okay when they could do it. No.
I guess so. But at any rate, so we had 4 squash matches.
True.
That was half of our card, and I can't even be mad at most of these. Our squash matches were Neville versus Mr. Irrelevant Curtis Axel, and they call him Mr. Irrelevant because he was the last person picked. And it's good to see that they're treating a Hall of Famer's son with such dignity and respect. To the surprise of no one, Neville, to an oddly very quiet crowd, won that match. Like, the crowd was not into that at all. They were having none of it.
Not even close.
Like, I don't know if Gravity's family was in the crowd. Which, by the way, Gravity, you know that man's back, and you know that man's in the ring. You better get in there, and you better give Neville his money. But, I mean, it was weird. It was, like, eerie. Like, there was no one cheering. I don't know if they were gassed from one of the matches before, or what.
They were on the zero fuck train to Georgia. I'll tell you that.
We also had Enzo and Cass versus the Shining Stars, which was a freaking squash match. Which, man, why did you spend like a month and a half building these guys up if you were just gonna job them out every time? Like, it literally is. It's Carlito's lesser talented brother and cousin versus Enzo and Cass. And, of course, Enzo and Cass won.
With a passion.
And then we had Braun Strowman versus a guy.
Womp womp.
And that was it. And then we had Nia Jax, who looked very strong. And I'm looking
That's because she's not like most girls.
I did not like the way she was portrayed in NXT. I do think that Vince and his crazy carny train will be able to capitalize on how unique of an athlete she is. And actually,
she's actually a great athlete. I think that's the problem. She is the most dedicated of the women in the women's division for NXT.
like, by the way, when she got picked, like, she broke down into tears. They did not tell her she was getting
They didn't
picked.
tell anybody. They didn't tell Alexa. They didn't tell AA. They didn't tell anybody. They did it on purpose. I think the only one they probably thought of telling would probably be Finn, because they had to tell him because of what happened.
Even if they didn't tell him, even if they didn't tell him, he knew. He knew he was getting picked.
Oh yeah, he was like
They were wrapping him up.
You know, it was done.
But at any rate, and those were the squash matches. And we also, because for the WWE Universal title,
For the Horde.
so this is the way it works out. They need to determine who's going to be the title. Now, I'll give them credit. I thought they were just going to hand it to Seth. They didn't. But they instead decided to have 2 Fatal 4-Way matches to determine 2 people to fight in the main event of that night's Raw, and the winner of that match would face Seth at SummerSlam for the WWE, oh my god, this is so stupid, emoji title. Anyway, the first of those Fatal 4-Way...
Emphasis on emoji, by the way.
Yeah. The first of those Fatal 4-Ways was Finn Balor versus Russell versus Kevin Owens versus Cesaro. And that was match of the night. It was the first match, and it was match of the night. It was damn good. It was a freaking phenomenal match. Like, Russell brought it, KO brought it, Cesaro brought it, Finn Balor's Raw debut, and he brought it, and is it a surprise to anyone that Finn won with the coup de grace to Russell?
Yes.
Yay! I remembered. I wasn't as drunk as I thought I was that night.
By the way, fantastic 4-way match. It was so good.
Yes.
So now I just want to go back on this. Even the squash matches, the hype train on Raw was just so good. It was they were like, Stephanie was like to Mick, we need to build this mountain. How are we going to build it? Let's start here. And by the time they even got up to even the second squash match, they were already on their upper echelon of the mountain. They were that well built. The mountain was rated for the tippy top, which is the last match. My God, that whole scenario altogether. I just want to go back on one thing. I just want to make a joke about this real quick. But
Go ahead.
Braun Strowman and his new debut powerhouse-looking ship brick house look vet. Tell me the guy they picked before the match began. Did Byron Saxton like whisper in his ears, by the way, your Braun Strowman's sexual needs for the night. Good luck! And like stepped out because that match looked like it was just like Destruction Central.
It reminded me of Heidenreich molesting Michael Cole. That's what it reminded me of.
That's so true. It's so true and yet so sad.
At any rate, so Finn Balor won his way into the main event. After that, we, later on, about an hour later, got to the second match, which was Roman I'm a Loser Reigns versus Sammy I Just Beat Up KO Zayn versus Sheamus I Was World Champion last year versus Y2J, L'Oreal's favorite wrestler. Drink it in, man.
Soak it up, bro.
L2J. L2J.
She's literally
L2. Anyway, Roman killed L2J and pinned him so that he could secure his. And at that point, I mean, it was a decent match. It wasn't as good as the first one, but I mean,
anybody but you, Roman.
It's worth pointing out that the match started off with Sheamus and Jericho beating the shit out of Roman. And Sammy just standing there like, well, I ain't getting in the middle of that.
Not yet.
And the whole crowd was cheering. They were into it. And then Roman starts fighting back. And then Sammy gets into it. And then it's the three of them beating up. And the crowd is all into it.
Heavily invested.
I mean, they are just eating this up. They don't care that Sammy is teaming up with the heels. They only care that Roman Reigns is getting his ass kicked.
Handed.
And that was the story of the match. Everyone was happy when Roman was dead, and everyone acted like they should have when Roman was not around. But when Roman was introduced, Roman was booed, everyone else was cheered.
True.
And when Roman hit the spear and pinned Jericho, that was not a happy crowd. Because them, like us, and I'm going to share this now. I've mentioned him before, my best friend Vest. He watched the show on Hulu the next night because he was working that night. So he texted me when he watches it, and he texted me, it's like, oh man, Roman won, I can see where this is going. Me having already watched the show, I'm like, yeah man, it just sucks, doesn't it? Shh. I'll share the rest of that conversation with you guys later. Anyway, so our main event will be Roman versus Finn. We will get to that in 1 second, because there was something that happened before that. Oh my god. Maggle. Because as they had everyone lined up at the beginning of the show and they were announcing everything, Mick Foley pointed out that Sasha Banks had made Charlotte tap the night before, and that earned her a shot at the WWE Women's title that night on Raw. And so we got Sasha Banks, the boss, your girl, my girl,
The girl,
they girl, versus Charlotte with Dana Brooks. Now, it was easy for us to think that this was going to be a throwaway match. I went into this match thinking that we were going to get like a 1-segment match and that was going to be it. That's what you thought, I'm willing to bet, as well.
we thought it was another cheap shit show again. Like, it was just like, yeah, so that way they could build it up for SummerSlam. That's what I was thinking.
That's what I was thinking too. 3-segment match. 3-segment match, which means it went 30 minutes.
Yep.
At the end of the first segment, they brought it around to as part of the narrative, because if you've paid attention to the narrative of Sasha Banks, and even though they've kept her off, to the frustration of all of us, we had a segment on this show which was called Can we please just have Sasha Banks? I had a little thing that would crawl across the screen at times. At any rate, Sasha Banks has always said her favorite wrestler is Eddie Guerrero. So at the end of the first segment, she's on the outside. Charlotte was going to hit her with the belt, but couldn't because the referee came to, or Sasha hit her or something, so the belt got dropped. And Dana's like all right there, and like Sasha and like Charlotte is like distracting the referee, and Dana's about to hit Sasha, and Sasha is right by the belt. She grabs the belt, she tosses it to Dana, and then just kind of falls on the ground and like writhes like she's about to get hit. Like, no, please don't hit me. The referee turns around, sees Dana with the belt,
And say, no.
Bad Dana, you get out of here. You go back to the yard. No cookies for you. Somebody gets Apollo Creed's cookies, but it's not you.
Good joke.
Thank you. See, I brought it back. I pay attention to the continuity of this show. It was a back and forth match. Now, those of you who know me know that I am one of the staunchest. I'm like, this is what's going to happen because this is what's got to happen. I mean, it's got to happen this way. If it doesn't happen this way, it's pure fucking madness. I thought for sure Charlotte was going to win. But that ending sequence, that last sequence where got her in the bank statement, sat there, was doing it. Charlotte manages to get her way to the ropes. He has to break. And they did that perfect camera close-up on Charlotte. You can just see her, and you can just hear her say, you will never, ever beat me, ever. And then charge, get sidestepped, right into the backstabber, right into the bank statement. A painful fucking bank statement, mind you. And your winner and new WWE Women's Champion, the boss, Sasha Banks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
and always good. Like, crowd destroyed, the audience loud. Nuclear good, heat destroyed. Extra mega powers destroyed. Good moment.
It was at that point where we decided, and everyone in our chat decided, it's like, hey, maybe we are looking at a new era.
Yeah.
I mean,
and we couldn't care less. We couldn't care less about the main event. We could, you know what?
No.
We were like,
Byron,
you can have your pass. You could do what
my,
you want.
my one
Go ahead and start that fire.
problem
babe.
with this
Go
is
ahead.
that they brought Byron down, and Byron needed to just shut up and just not be there. They just need to let her soak it in.
Yeah, that one time where crowd reaction interviews was not necessary was
Right.
that. Because I feel like they cut her off in the emotional knees because she was about to burst out into tears. Like, she was so hard trying to say, okay, don't do it, answer the questions, don't do it. Because if you just let her go full Benoit after 20,
Yeah,
that would have been better. Because he cried like a bitch when he won that title.
he did.
It was a justly deserved crying like a bitch because the odds were against him. Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and him.
And you know,
It was hard.
I'm sorry to say this. This was a phenomenal match, and you should go see it right now. But it was the second best match of the night. I'm sorry. Finn, Russell, KO, and Cesaro was a better match.
Yeah.
I almost wish they had saved it for the next week, just so that it could have been the best match on the card. I really do. But really phenomenal match. This is what we were talking about when we were talking about the Divas Revolution. This is what we wanted. It's not what we wanted. It's not what we wanted. It's you know, the other stuff is not what we wanted. This is what we wanted all along. What did we want?
All we wanted for Christmas.
Exactly. What did we want? Good women's matches, and give us Sasha and Charlotte. That's your money match. Who was right? We were right. WWE owes us money. Anyway.
Motherfuckers.
But that brings us to the main event. The Demon Finn Balor versus the guy Roman Reigns for the right to face Seth Rollins for the WWE Universal Championship at SummerSlam.
Whew. This
match. It was not a long match. It was about 15, 20 minutes long. I didn't see the ending coming. Did you?
Nope.
I mean, it was... We expected Roman was going to win. Because that's the storyline. Roman versus Seth. That's what we expected. They have pushed Roman solid for 2 fucking years. 2 years of him being pushed down our throat.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then he gets this violation. And he has to job to Seth. And then he's gone for 30 days, so he can't be in the build-up. And then he has to job to Dean. And then he has to job to Finn. In
all defenses, though, that was still a good match.
It was still a good match. But the best part of it was Byron Saxton right after the match with that microphone in Roman's face and Roman having to put him over.
And had to say to him, I hope he beats him at
I hope he beats him at Battleground because I want him next. I want him next because I respect that dude. And you knew no, you don't, Roman.
Can you just get the hate of being a heel already and just get on with it? Nobody wants you to be face. Nobody cares that you're face.
No.
You got too many face. You got the anti-face happening right now with Seth Rollins. There's no need for you to be there. He's the baby face of all baby faces. Finn Balor.
Finn fucking Balor versus Seth fucking Rollins.
Someone needs to be
for the top title on Raw. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna riff a little line from a SmackDown talent. And, oh wait. Nope, they're a Raw talent, and we kind of missed something. That's fine. We'll come back to it in a second. We only need to touch on it really fast. But, ladies and gentlemen, judging from this Raw, it's a new day! Yes, it is!
Oh god, new era is definitely happening.
And I hope it continues past SummerSlam. Right now,
yep. Oh man.
I'm cautiously optimistic. By the way, also, New Day did a little thing to celebrate. They are now the longest reigning tag team champions of this era. They came down, they did a stupid thing with some guy named Sonny Boy, then the club came down, beat the shit out of all of them, blew their noses in some shirts and threw them at the crowd, and then walked off.
Pretty much getting the club heat without... Pretty much cementing the fact that the club does not need AJ Styles to do well.
Nope, and I'm looking forward to the club becoming our next WWE Tag Team Champions.
Because it's totally happening.
It is. New Day, you're the longest. That seems to be the thing. WWE wants to make you the longest of whatever title you've got, and then they're done with you. And now that you're the longest whatever, you're going to lose the next title defense. You're going to lose it.
All bets are off when you officially made a title reign,
right?
Because that's what happened to Nikki Bella as soon as she had it.
That's what happened to Dean Ambrose as soon as he passed the mark with the U.S. title, and then that's what happened to Rusev again once he passed the mark with the U.S. title.
Poor Ruru.
Poor Ruru. But I mean that was Raw, and I mean, God, wow.
All I kept thinking about when I watched the ending of Raw is I could see like Stephanie McMahon staring at Shane and say, "Your turn," like
bring
fuck.
It. And that brings us to SmackDown.
And folks, yes, and folks, here's the thing: if that happened, Shane said, "No. We're going to do it all right tonight. We're going to just keep it at 50, not 100.
Let's be fair. To be fair and completely
to my
objective.
Point from the very beginning of this podcast, I will be fair. And I felt like this entire SmackDown night was very underdogish, very passionate, very complacent. But definitely could not take on those two gigantic missile launchers that they threw at us of Sasha winning the belt and Finn winning over Roman. They didn't have anything that could come to that. Yep.
I mean, even their big thing at the end, hooray, I guess, but we'll get to that. But I mean, here's the thing. Raw has an extra hour. Raw has way more talent. Raw's going to have the cruiserweights eventually. Raw has more belts. SmackDown didn't have a chance. So, SmackDown starts. We get to SmackDown, and all of the talent is around the ring. And it is announced that there's going to be, at the end of the night, a six-pack challenge. Which is, for those of you, because apparently a lot of people didn't know what this was. I had a couple of texts asking me who it was, and a couple of people in our chat were asking who it was. What it was. A six-pack challenge is a fatal four-way with two extra people. First pin wins. Sometimes they say it's elimination, but that's very rare. At any rate, so what ends up happening is that they say there's going to be a six-pack challenge, and the winner of the six-pack challenge is going to be the number one contender for Dean Ambrose's World Heavyweight Championship. Automatically in the match is, of course, John freaking Cena. And that's where I thought they were going with it. AJ Styles, which is where I would have liked them to go with it. Bray Wyatt, who was my dark horse, and I would have loved for that to have been the thing. They put Dolph Ziggler in there for reasons, and they put fucking Randy Orton Jr., fucking boring Corbin, because of course they did. And the sixth spot was going to go to the winner of a battle royal that started right then and there. And so, we got our battle royal. And it was basically everyone who was not in there, also not, oddly enough, Miz or Randy Orton. Neither of them were in there as well. But there was this big battle royal. Look, it's a battle royal. We can sit there, we can talk about it all you want. All you really need to know was that it came down to Zack Ryder. He wasn't going to win. Kane, because someone who I can't remember, who probably isn't that important, and Apollo Crews, or Terry Crews. One of the Cruzes was in there at the end. And shenanigans. Apollo Crews wins. Yay! He gets a cookie. See how I brought that back again?
Too many cookies.
Oh, too many cookies. Okay, well, no, Apollo. No cookie for you. Note to editing Kami's self. See if you can find a sad Apollo with a no cookie.
I have to say though, I feel like Apollo was forced to say what he said because he's like, I'm not gonna celebrate until the last match, and I'm like, okay, that's good.
So the Battle Royal was like 3 freaking segments. It was like a whole fourth of the show.
Yeah, the only thing I had a beef with that, of course, is that the lack of talent issue that we've already established.
Yeah.
And that is that when the last 4 people, one of them is someone who's been there for 2 decades already.
Yeah.
You're pushing at straws here. So,
Well, they are addressing the talent thing, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a couple over.
Of course.
What happened next was Baron Corbin Sr., a.k.a. Randy Orton, was on Miz TV. And somehow that turned into a match. Yeah. Pretty much if you saw the highlight reel 2 nights before on freaking Battleground, it was, for the most part, the same thing, except instead of just a RKO out of nowhere, a match out of nowhere. And
it was a sloppy match to be
honest. Oh, God, it was a god-awful match. It looked like Randy hurt his shoulder again. And then on top of all of that, Randy did like an RKO, and then there was like this weird 5-minute pause where he was
like they were trying to recapture the whole
sitting and moment. Yeah, exactly. It was weird, and then he gave him another RKO, and then he pinned him, and that was it. It was like 5 minutes of my life just gone. Like they must have thought the Battle Royal was going to run longer because
I think
they definitely had some pacing issues with the show.
That or Billy Kimmon's like, you know what, we need people to like you a lot more than Viperville, so we'll let you torture Miz a little longer. So here, I'm giving you the extra 5 minutes.
Before we get to the next match, we need to address once again. SmackDown had a new look. They had a new graphics. New Chiron looked good. You said that you liked.
I actually the beginning. Yeah.
You like SmackDown stage more than you like Raw stage.
Yeah, it looks very epic. It looks very like
a lot of people
than ever.
Because they had shown the new SmackDown opening, and the fist is in the opening. A lot of people thought the SmackDown fist was coming back.
Yeah, it wasn't happening. I knew that.
Call me a classicist. The SmackDown fist is classic. I would have loved for them to have brought the SmackDown fist back.
No.
I mean, granted, I know, granted, there is a little thing on WWE on WWE.com, their archives or their YouTube site, where they talk about the SmackDown fist and what it took to actually put that thing up. So I understand why they didn't.
Yeah,
that thing is like 4.5 tons.
Yeah, it's heavy as shit, and they had an accident one time where the thing fell off during a match during a dark show, and that's why they changed it even before the SmackDown let go. They changed that arena fast. I gotta say this much.
Go ahead.
I gotta say this much. The reason why I liked that one is because it looks bigger than the pay-per-view's frickin' stage.
It does a bit. It's not, but it does.
Well, I think the wall is larger on both left and right side.
Nope.
But yeah, either way, I love that, and I also love the new camera angle they're working with. They got this crane camera that is actually moving left to right.
Raw had the same thing.
No, they didn't. It was
no, you're right. Raw had the up and down and the corner cameras.
Yeah.
They're working with a lot of new stuff, and they're definitely trying to make the two products feel different, which is fine. Yeah. It's groovy. I like it. Also, new announced team, JBL was moved over to SmackDown. Jerry Lawler's out. How do you pronounce his name? Morello?
Morrow
is leading up. JBL is his heel color commentator. Dave Otunga was there.
You triggered me, sir.
Okay, well, I will finish my beer while you go. Go ahead.
Okay, actually, I did want to do something big here, and that is, I wanted to thank Jerry the King Lawler for all the time he's had in the last few decades of wrestling, because he's officially done with as far as TV on screen when it comes to SmackDown or Raw commentators.
He's going to do the pre-show stuff.
He is doing the pre-show. He actually is on the Raw and SmackDown pre-show this week. He was on the 30-minute episodes that happened on the WWE Network and WWE.com before Raw and SmackDown launched, and he was with Lita and that guy who I never remember, who only does the pre-shows. I think it was a great time. I really wished they could have done something like they did for JR. That's the only thing I wished, because I feel like that man deserves a little bit more than just, and he's gone. You know?
Right.
I feel like they should do something more for him, and I really hope that I hope they're going to acknowledge that somehow, because Jerry the King Lawler did his job for a long, long time, longer than JR, and he was a great commentator in many ways, and he's also had his ups and downs like everyone else does. And unfortunately, the hype of his domestic dispute definitely scuttled his ending career. But he deserves a lot more than just yep, and he's gone.
Well,
So
I will also say
right.
this, and this was kind of my point, which when we were discussing when it came out that the announcers were changing just before the pay-per-view. He may not look it, but Jerry Lawler is damn near 70.
Yes.
And although I appreciate, like you, thank you, Jerry, for everything you have done. A heel Jerry Lawler was a beautiful thing to behold. And if you guys did not experience that during the Attitude Era, during the heyday of him and JR together, like it is a beautiful thing.
And watch his Hall of Fame speech too. It was so good.
Yeah, but he's 70 years old. He needed to go. Now, I will say this much. I take issue with David Otunga taking his place.
Oh, God, spit me in my mouth. At least Tom Phillips. Do something.
I mean, I'm glad Tom Phillips is taking over Main Event, which is exclusively SmackDown, and Superstars, oh man, which is exclusively Raw. But it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, well, Like, I barely knew Otunga was there.
You know what's so funny is he doesn't need the money. You know who he's married to?
They just don't know what to do with him. They really don't. Because he was a wrestler, and then he worked in their legal department for a little while, and then he was kind of like a backstage commentator, and then he was like kind of a general manager assistant kind of deal. And then he kind of just went and worked in corporate, and now he's an announcer. They don't know what to do with him. Who is he married to, by the way?
Jennifer fucking Hudson, the famous singer.
Well, clearly you're having a stroke, and that cannot be true.
It damn right it's true. It's true. Kurt Angle true, baby.
Okay, I tell you what. I'm going to go look this up on Wikipedia. While I'm doing that, because we got to move this along, we actually had another match. We had Becky versus Natalya rematch 2 days after the fact for reasons. Start talking about that. I'm going to confirm this with my sources.
Okay. Well, in this case, in general, when it came to the SmackDown matches, it was mostly great altogether. I'll give him that. But, we had a weird moment, I would say. And that was I would call it the SmackDown's version of the final deletion of Becky and Natty Neidhart. They had a decent match, and finally Faded Saint gets to get his question out there is, she's going to eventually win something, right?
Fuck!
Folks, I'm going to take a breaking moment here. We're going to break away to this breaking news of the face and self-discovery of what good Faded Saint has just discovered about David Otunga and his relationship status.
He's right. She's married to David Otunga. Not only that, but they have a kid.
Yeah.
David Daniel Otunga Jr.
To Jennifer Hudson.
Why? How?
They should have named that baby Security Deposit.
I don't. Let's talk about the wrestling. Okay.
Let's go back. Let's go back to another WTF at this point.
Okay.
That is Becky Lynch versus Natty Neidhart again.
Oh,
the final edition of SmackDown.
Where were we with that? I'm sorry. I was over there. What were you saying?
I called it the final deletion of SmackDown. The last match you'll ever see when it comes to them feuding like that.
Well, they can't. That's the feud that's got to carry their women's division at the moment. Because yes, but their division isn't big enough for them not to fight again.
They actually equally have the same amount of women as they do Raw.
They do. But Raw has the experienced women's.
But back to point here. So Becky eventually gets what and the Faded Saint finally gets his moment and actually gets the whole question he's been asking. Eventually she's going to win, right? Well, she did. She
Dame
won
Dolph
against
Ziggler
Yep.
won against
Now-
Natty Neidhart.
Now, of course, just
And
like
then,
repeat it by having someone come out and talk to her as a reactionary interview, and they scuttled it like bad. Like, you could call me Becky Balboa. Like, that was stupid. And even worse is the confusion situation that happens after that.
then
And that-
Alexa comes out.
yeah. Which, by the way, fabulous on the mic as always.
Yes. And
Strong comes in, say, "I'm Alexa Bliss. I'm doing this. We're gonna fuck shit up." And then all of a sudden, apparently, someone in the back, maybe Kevin Dunn or someone's like, "Just fire all missiles and just let all the women come out." And everyone got their own intro. All of them were like, "I'm
Like
gonna be."
somebody else came out. I forget who else is on the roster. And then Camilla came out. And then fucking Eva Marie, who doesn't even say anything, who just gets like this long ass intro with an announcer and everything.
That's beautiful because she needs to have the nuclear heat that Roman Reigns has. Like, they just hate her so much. And this was perfect because they gave her not only her own intro, but the intro of the song has someone announcing her. And it just made it like, why do we even know you here? You suck.
Like the
That
whole,
was the best part.
but the whole thing was such a fucking clusterfuck.
Yes,
I'm like,
because it ended right there. There was like nothing. There wasn't like
there wasn't like a confrontation. There wasn't like a brawl. It was just like,
or Shane
okay.
coming out saying, "Ladies, I know you're having it iffy here, and I know Charlotte has the title over on Raw. Well, or Sasha in this case. I know that Sasha has the title over on Raw. What should we do for you? Let's have a battle royale for a new title." No, nothing like that. It was just everyone come out. All the women are here. This is all the women. Hello, women. Goodbye, everybody. Next match.
Oh, pretty much. That was it. It's over. Done.
Like, literally, horribly done.
So, after that was, I believe, the main event. There was a couple of other things that happened, but we need to talk about a couple of these other two things that happened, because we were talking about...
We do want to address one cool thing that I felt like was perfect, and that was Heath Slater demanding to be drafted. I thought that was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool. And
it
I know
leads
you
into
feel
the
different. Yeah, that leads into the topic, because Heath Slater was demanding to be drafted, and Rhino showed up for reasons and gored him. And I loved that. And I know you didn't, but I did.
I didn't like it because I love Rhino as a character. But
He'll drive.
But you know it, and you and I both know I'm one of the biggest NXT fans in that you know, and I follow them very religiously. And of course, Rhino to me now is, I call him the segue jobber. I feel like he comes out of nowhere when they don't have a big thing for the main champion or the main bad guy, so they'll throw Rhino into the mix, like how Big Show was like circa 2009. You know, like, we need someone to face on this problem, send in Rhino. And they did this recently with Samoa Joe because...
No, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
And they're like, no more Rhino. No more Rhino. And I was like, yes, I feel that way. No more Rhino. Why was he even used? There's so many other people they could have picked. Hell, they could have even used anyone else but Rhino to just shut up Heath Slater, or introduce Heath Slater as, you know what, you got a point, go to SmackDown. No, they didn't do that. Rhino just came out of nowhere. Though Rhino's gore was sexy.
Yes, it was. And it was great. But Rhino was not the only person who staked his claim.
No.
Because we got something else. We
My
got
favorite-
a promo earlier. Now, it wasn't the one that we were expecting, because we were expecting that when SmackDown acquired an Olympic-level talent, we were expecting to say that it was going to be, it was true. But
Oh no, I knew that before it happened, and because I got spoiled, because I actually am a big fan of another show that's on YouTube we all know as What Culture Wrestling.
Oh.
And he is actually going to be wrestling for CCPW.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. But officially, Shelton freaking Benjamin had a vignette, and he's coming back to SmackDown. I believe they said coming soon. They didn't give us a timetable, but they said coming soon. And like, I'm fanatical. Like, I'm one of the guys who thought that Shelton Benjamin didn't get a fair shake the first time around.
No, stop me! No. Well, I called that the experimental era,
Right?
Because that golden, what was it? The golden sun. What the hell?
The gold standard, Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah, exactly.
Back when his mama was his manager.
See, right after they split up Team Angle, Shelton Benjamin was on the road to victory.
He
Because
was.
Charlie Haas got bitch slipped and got paired up with fucking the manager for Billy and Chuck,
Rico. Hey,
he got
Rico
bitched in.
Constantino is an American gladiator, is a firefighter, is a 2-time tag team champion, and is a 1-time intercontinental champion, and a strongman. So
And a current EMT also.
yeah, and a current EMT. So
But
Rico Constantino
I never said anything about that. I just saying that he went from one tag team to a semi-okay tag team, while Shelton Benjamin got the Intercontinental title, had a smashing breakthrough match with Shawn Michaels. Like all these
that
great things.
kick.
Yeah,
You know what kick I'm talking about.
the kick heard around the world.
The kick that they have been trying to duplicate ever since it happened.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Now that's great news that Shelton Benjamin's going to come to SmackDown.
Yep, there ain't no stopping him now. Unless he's in the main event.
Nope.
Unless he's against John Cena. Unless he's against AJ Styles. Unless he's against
But
Bray Wyatt.
let's talk about why SummerSlam is going to be interesting.
Well, it's going to be
Is-
interesting because we
is-
had this six-pack challenge. Now, it was, for those of you who are keeping score at home, it was a big match John Cena versus the phenomenal AJ Styles versus the Eater of Worlds Bray Wyatt versus I won the Battle Royal and I get a cookie, Apollo Crews versus Dolph Mr. Zack Ryder Jr. Ziggler versus, oh shit, it's boring fucking Corbin / Randy Orton Jr. Fucking boring Corbin. And I was dead convinced that they were gonna give it to him.
Well, in my defense, I know we don't like Baron Corbin, but I really hope they're going to evolve him because his match tonight wasn't bad. In his 6-pack, he actually did a good job taking on 5 other wrestlers with him.
Yeah, but he had 5 other wrestlers also to carry his baggage. I hope they do something with him.
I think the end of days is overused, yes, but when he does the deep 6, that takes talent, man.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And I think that's the whole thing. If they're going to need some heels, I hope he'll deliver with this whole new underdog talent that SmackDown's producing. That's all I'm saying.
My biggest problem with boring Corbin is, and I don't know if this is his fault or the writer's fault, but he needed to destroy Dolph in their, 4-month-long feud. He just needed to destroy him. And, I go back to a text message, which I cited when we covered it back then, that my brother said. He said, it's like, so let me get this straight. Baron freaking Corbin, this big-ass monster, could not beat Dolph Ziggler with a neck injury.
Nope.
And that's the problem. He needs to be booked as a monster. His strength is not in long matches. He was most interesting in NXT when the fans were counting how long his matches were taking. And that's what they need to do.
And eventually they got sick of that.
Yeah, eventually they got sick with that, but they eventually had him doing longer matches and they couldn't count long.
They did. They built him up. They built him up as a brick house. And, of course, I feel like they punished him, and didn't they punish Apollo Crews for a bit?
Kind of, but Apollo Crews had some really shitty matches when he came out.
Wasn't it Sheamus and him for a bit?
It was, but he had a really crappy match where he botched everything against Y2J, and then he had another match where he botched half of the spots with Sheamus, and he got kind of stuck at the bottom. But the match itself was good. I'll be honest, I did not see what we had, what happened, which was, if you don't understand, if you didn't, Dolph Ziggler with a super kick, not the zigzag, not the famouser, with a super kick which has not freaking taken anyone out or gotten a pinfall since Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25 won the match.
Yeah. And Dolph Ziggler won.
Yeah, Dolph Ziggler won.
Point.
Mr. Becky Lynch won. Just wear that for a second. Zack Ryder Jr. won. Less talented Brian Kendricks won. Less handsome Shawn Michaels won. The guy who they've been actively burying for the last 3 years. The guy who, quite literally, some people have freaking texted me and asked me, okay, so who is Dolph Ziggler Jr., and who is Dolph Ziggler Jr., and who is, Samoan Dolph Ziggler, and this stuff, because I use him as a standard of jobbers. And he's going to be going for the World Heavyweight title against Dean Ambrose at SummerSlam. I feel mixed about this, despite the fact that it sounds like I feel very negatively about it. I like Dolph. I think he's very underrated. I think he puts on great matches. I feel like unless SummerSlam turns out to be the match of his life, this is going to be the beginning and end of the conversation of SmackDown being competitive with Raw.
Well, I could tell you this much. I've said this in our group chat, that he's not going to win the world title.
God, no.
But this needs to be his resurrection match.
This needs to be a 30 to 45 minute long match, and this needs to be the match of his life.
This needs to prove that Dolph Ziggler is a competitor for something more than the job sites of other new wrestlers.
This needs to be more than a placeholder for Baron fucking Corbin.
Yep.
Cruz.
They need to make it look like Dean Ambrose is money, and in return, they need to bring Dolph Ziggler into the light of how they tried to do it circa Survivor Series 3 years ago.
I agree. And that brings us to the end of SmackDown, and Raw won. SmackDown wasn't a bad show, but it was weird.
Raw made a mountain, and SmackDown made a hill.
I'll say this much: SmackDown is having growing pains, going from pre-taped to live, because there was a lot of pacing issues with SmackDown, which I hope will be worked out over the next month or so, and then we'll get a more consistent show. That was the biggest problem with them, because it seemed like they ran short and they were looking to expand out some time. It wasn't a bad show, but it was a decent enough show.
But like I said, you had two big missile shots of Sasha winning the belt and Finn winning over Roman. That is very, very hard to over in any way, shape, or form. Like, I don't even in that 6-pack match, I don't think any one of them would have been over those two if any of them won. Even Dolph Ziggler, surprise win, it's going to be so hard to over those two.
I agree. So that brings us to, what we're looking forward to with SummerSlam. And we know for a fact that of 3 matches. We know that there's going to be Brock Lesnar versus Randy Orton. Mm-hmm. We know that there's going to be Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. Mm-hmm. And we know that there's going to be Dean Ambrose versus Dolph Ziggler. Now, we've already stated neither one of us think Dolph is going to win that match. And WWE, if you're listening, if you're going to want to surprise us on a match, don't make it that match.
Yeah, don't make him win. We do not want to show weakness on your star pupil that you're trying to make.
You need to keep Dean up there, because right now he's the most credible guy you got on the roster that's not John Cena.
And John Cena does not need to be in that place. Yeah.
No, like if you wanted to go AJ, you could have put it on AJ, and that would have been fine. But unless you're going to go AJ or Cena, you don't want to put it on.
Actually, you know what? I do stand corrected. AJ probably would have been up there on the whole. Oh my God, SmackDown was amazing.
Yes, if AJ would have won, I would have. I would have. I think I would have liked that better. Yeah. Because maybe I would have seen it coming more.
But we know why. We know why they couldn't make him win, because
they've got to do another freaking match at SummerSlam. They've got to do the rubber match between him and John Cena, and we know that's coming, even though it hasn't been announced. We know it's coming. So let's just get it out of the way right now. John Cena's going to win the rubber match. Let's just get it over with so that we can push AJ off to better things and get past this.
And I have to assume they're going to have a rematch for Charlotte and Sasha.
Yeah, I'm with that there. I think Sasha wins that going out. That's
I think
that's
it's a
my
good. I
prediction.
think it's a good opportunity for Sasha for Charlotte to officially get out of that whole "I need someone in my corner" mentality for matches. I think this would be a good moment if she did win to win clean and fantastically. So to have a big feud between those two would be fantastic. But we'll see. We'll
Fair
see.
enough. I don't know. The vibe I've been getting for Raw is that new is in, old is out. And I'm sorry to say this, Seth, but you're the old guard. Like, I look at you and I think of the Authority. And they seem like they want to distance themselves for that. So I think they're going to go with Finn.
Well, this title has no prestige behind it, so they can pick anyone. This title has no merits behind it that they'd be like, dude, no, give it to Finn, give it to this guy because he this is the belt that's been around for a while now. No, that I can see Finn winning, but to be honest, no matter what, that match is going to be orgasmic.
It is. Because
as much as I like Roman, I think he's a great wrestler. Roman, I think for a big guy, he moves pretty well. He does really good. Botches very little. But if you want a match,
he needs a mouthpiece. If
you want a match, if you want a real match, you bring the goods from wrestlers that have been wrestling hard for a long time. And Seth Rollins has been wrestling for a long time.
Yes.
Finn Balor has been wrestling for a long time. They are the upper echelon of everything they've done, from Ring of Honor to New Japan. They know their shit. And they're going to put these two in a match for a belt that hasn't even been around either one's waist. They are going to bring it.
I agree.
To the point where I'm afraid that we're going to look at match of the year not from those last two matches from Kevin and Sami Zayn, but the match of the year might come to Finn and Seth Rollins.
That is a bold statement, my friend.
I'm going there, my man.
Okay.
Because you know what?
Okay. I will reserve judgment for when I see it, but I'm not saying you're wrong. No. Because I know what Finn can do. I know what Seth can do. And
these two can handle each other's spots, Saint.
They can.
That's my point.
No, they absolutely can. I agree with you. They could very well be match of the year, and I hope they are. Because when we're constantly saying this could be match of the year and they're living up to our hype, that's good for us. That's good for us, the fans.
Yeah. They have a few weeks to build up these two on Raw. So
got about a month.
Let's make it happen.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, let's make it happen. Let's make it so we're salivating at the idea of them fighting like balls to the walls.
Next question, and this will be the last one before we get to the questions. Do we honestly care who wins against Brock and Randy?
Not a bit. I really hope Brock smashes the shit out of Randy Orton, even though I have a good feeling they're going to let Viper win. He's the golden son. He's the golden cousin of Triple H. So,
I agree with you there. It feels like they're going to let Randy get over, and
we'll find out on Raw.
But Brock should. Yeah, Brock. We'll see. And it's a thing. I don't really care. It's the match that literally no one demanded.
Literally, the whole thing about their gimmick right now is how it only takes one RKO to beat him. So
that's not true. It took two to beat Miz.
I know. Well, he did it on purpose, but yeah, I know.
Doesn't matter. It still took two. You're dumbass, Randy.
But you're right. I have interesting news for us here, Faded Saint. Not only did we have one question from the audience, we have two.
Oh, we got a couple of questions before we sign off here. All right, go ahead and let's hear it.
First question comes from my man Fuzzy. That's what he wants to be called in this case for this situation. His question is. This is actually a big one. I think this is a good one. Will SmackDown create their own tag team and women's belts?
They shouldn't, but yes.
Tell me what you mean by that.
the tag teams and women's division separately on Raw and SmackDown are not big enough to sustain a belt on their own. There should be the women's and tag team belts should jump between brands. Whoever the champions are, they should be allowed to jump through brands, and when they are no longer the champions, they should be relegated to whatever brand they were drafted to. Fair enough. There are 6 tag teams and roughly 5 or 6 women per brand. That's not a division. That's just a bunch of people. Not enough for a division, but not enough for. Will they? Yes. Should they? No. That's my answer.
Okay. I think they will make a women's title. I think the tag team could be easily politically between each other. They need something. I don't think Charlotte or Sasha or anybody is going to keep going between 2 championship shows. So I can easily see them bringing back that. Or a spin, and that is bring a women's tag team title into the mix. That's another one I was thinking they might want to do. But, we'll see.
Not enough women. Because if they bring a women's tag team title into the mix, you've only got 3 tag teams per show.
We'll see. Well, it doesn't have to be both. It could be just one or the other. I mean, hell, they said they're going to bring cruiserweights to Raw, and they haven't done dick with that in the first episode of Raw.
Well, they're waiting for the cruiserweight championship to finish.
Yeah, but that's going to be a while, man. They're only on episode 3 of 4 of the first stages.
Yep.
So
I understand that, but I do know for a fact that Raw has procured the services of one Yoshihara Tajiri. And I believe they've gotten Brian Kendricks under contract as well, and they've gotten a couple of them. I
don't know if you're watching it, but man, they do not like Brian Kendrick.
He won
very seldomly, not well.
But he won in the Cruiserweight Championship. That's all that matters. Which, by the way, real quick plug: if you're not watching the Cruiserweight Championship, you should be.
Oh yeah, that Spanish Fly alone in that match was fantastic.
God. But anyway. There's 3 episodes. It's wonderful. You'll love it.
Second episode was the best.
So second question.
Getting back to that, we have a really good question from what he's calling himself the mystery fan. The question is that do you see in 6 months them switching out GMs based on ratings, concerns, and services?
No. And here's why. Because if you're going to switch out GMs, you don't start off with Mick Foley and Daniel Bryan. Because the biggest way that you can get people to turn on SmackDown is getting rid of Daniel Bryan. He's just too beloved.
Okay.
Mick, maybe not. It depends. But Mick is very beloved. Like I said, it feels like they can take him a few places here. We might.
Do you think maybe in a year?
In a year, maybe. 6 months, I think, is way too soon. I think 6 months, you're asking for people to turn on your brand. Because a lot of SmackDown's goodwill right now is based off of the fact that it's run by Shane and Daniel. They got the 2 guys who we wanted to see the most. And they put them in charge of SmackDown.
True.
So, 6 months, no. A year, possibly. It depends. But I'm also glad to see that they're finding ways to use Daniel now that he can't wrestle anymore. Because I was very sad that he couldn't. But that's my answer. Do you have a different answer?
I feel that maybe Mick. I could see that. Only reason why I would see Daniel Bryan is if he did that by choice.
Fair enough. If he did it by choice, yeah. But I don't think that would be a writer's. But with that said, I believe that's all the time that we've got. We've gotten all the questions. We've gotten through a ton of freaking things. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to do this when we've got 2 pay-per-views. We may skip through a few.
We might have to adult and actually plan ahead.
What? No. But we're going to figure out what's going to go on. Like, the next pay-per-view we're probably going to cover is SummerSlam. I believe that's in 4 weeks from now. So we've got plenty of time. I'll look at the pay-per-view schedule. Yeah, for those of you who pay attention.
One thing I have to say, side note, SmackDown did announce their first pay-per-view, Backlash.
Yes, Backlash is going to be on September 11th. At any rate, we would like to go ahead and, at this point, we would like to once again thank bensound.com for our opening theme, Actionable. We would like to thank me, Chet, for our closing theme, Picnic at the Reactor. We would also like to thank Daily X-Man. He provided our mashup theme today. And, like I said, kind of work with us from here on out now that we've got this draft and we're going to be dealing with more pay-per-views. We're kind of got a work in progress going on here, so we're going to see what we're going to do about this. So it might be a little experimental for a time. But with that said, I'm your boy Kami, the Fated Saint. If you would like to drop me or my compatriot here a line, a question, a comment, you can catch me at Fated Saint on the Twitter, kamizite.tumblr.com on the Tumblr. That is my boy Kane Super What Snuka saying we will see you on the next podcast.
Later, folks.